Good evening, everybody. We are on episode 46 of Untold Evidence. At approximately 3 a.m. on the morning of the 26th of December 1980, USAF Staff Sergeant Jim Penniston walked through the Rendlesham Forest in Suffolk, England, towards a glowing triangular object on the forest floor. According to Penniston, he placed his hand on its smooth, black surface. Symbols were etched into it. The object, he says, was warm to the touch. And in that moment, although he would not reveal this for 30 years, he believes a stream of binary code was downloaded directly into his mind. Rendlesham Forest is a 15 square kilometre stretch of coniferous plantation in coastal Suffolk. In December 1980, it sat between two operational Royal Air Force bases, RAF Bentwaters to the north and RAF Woodbridge, most of which was inside the forest itself. Both were leased to the United States Air Force at the height of the Cold War. RAF Woodbridge hosted nuclear-capable aircraft. The combined facility was one of the largest US military installations in Western Europe, and it was secured 24 hours a day by US Air Force security police. What happened in Rendlesham Forest happened in the most heavily monitored 8 miles of woodland in the United Kingdom. The deputy base commander was Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt, the wing commander Colonel Gordon E. Williams. Both would, in different ways, become central to what the British press would later call the Britain's Roswell. At approximately 3 a.m. on December the 26th, 1980, an unusual orange light was reported descending into the forest just outside the east gate of RAF Woodbridge. A 3-man USAF security police team was dispatched. Staff Sergeant Jim Penniston in command. Airman First Class James Burrows, Airman First Class Ed Cabensack. They expected a downed aircraft. Cabensack remained at the forest edge. Penniston and Burrows entered the trees. According to Penniston's later accounts, what they found was not an aircraft. It was a triangular craft, roughly 2 to 3 meters across, smooth and metallic, black, in his own words, like volcano glass. He says he photographed it. He says he sketched it in his service notebook on the spot. He says he touched its surface and it felt like a thrumming warmth. And he says symbols that resembled hieroglyphs were etched into one panel. Burrows behind him saw lights. He described feeling time slowed down. Then, according to both men, the craft accelerated vertically, silently, and was then gone. The local Suffolk constabulary was called. Officers arrived shortly after 4 p.m. They reported seeing only one thing in the direction the airmen were pointing: the flashing light, or the Orford Ness lighthouse. On the night of the 28th of December 1980, multiple personnel reported lights returning to the forest. This time, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt, the deputy base commander himself, led a small investigation team into the trees. He carried a portable Geiger counter and a microcassette tape recorder. He was then, in effect, narrating what he saw in real time. The Halt audio tape is now publicly available, and it runs for approximately 18 minutes. It captures Halt's voice describing, unquote, a red sun-like light through the trees, then a series of star-like objects in the sky to the north and the south, one of which, according to Halt, sent a beam of light directly down to within feet of where he was standing. Quote, "It looked like an eye winking at you. Now we're observing what appears to be a beam coming down into the ground. This is unreal." Halt's Geiger counter, he later wrote, registered radiation levels he considered elevated. There were depressions in the ground at the alleged landing site. There were marks on the surrounding trees that resembled burns. Halt was deputy base commander of one of the largest US military installations in Western Europe. He was by every account a serious officer, and he had recorded what he saw on tape. 2.5 weeks after the event, on the 13th of Jan 1981, Lieutenant Colonel Halt sent a one-page memo to the United Kingdom's Ministry of Defence. It described the light, the depressions, the radiation readings, and the beam. The MOD logged it and took no further action. The memo was classified. It would not become public until October 1983, when the British tabloid News of the World published the headline, "UFO lands in Suffolk, and that's official." In 1985, the former head of the British Armed Forces, Lord Hill-Norton, wrote to the then Defence Secretary, Michael Heseltine. He called the incident, quote, "puzzling and disquieting," and argued it had never been properly explained. In 2009, the British National Archive released the complete MOD file on the case. It confirmed the case had not been formally investigated. The MOD position remained that the incident posed no threat to national security. And in 2010, 30 years after the event, Penniston publicly revealed for the first time that he had received what he called a binary code download. At the moment he touched that craft, he said, written the sequence in his notebook on the 27th of December 1980, and he'd kept it secret. He kept it secret for 3 decades. But here is what the Halt tape, the Halt memo, and Penniston's later claims do not address. On the same night as the first sighting, an exceptionally bright fireball burned up over southern England. This is an independent documented in atmospheric records. From the angle the airmen were standing, the Orford Ness lighthouse, 5 miles to the east, was visible directly through the trees. The lighthouse rotates. It produces a flashing light at exactly the rate Halt later recorded on tape. Local Suffolk police, called to the scene on the first night, reported they could only see the lighthouse. And then there's more. The original witness statement, written by Penniston, Burroughs and Cavanagh in early Jan 1981 at Halt's own request, and later uncovered by the researcher James Easton, described the airmen following the light for over 2 miles before realising it was coming from the lighthouse. A quote from Cavanagh's original written statement: "We followed it for about 2 miles before we could see it was coming from the lighthouse." This is on public record, what the men were actually there. Originally, what they had actually said. The star-like objects Halt later reported correspond in star charts for the night and the latitude with the positions of Sirius and Vega, both bright, both visible, both known to twinkle and appear to move under atmospheric distortion. The burn marks on the trees, according to local foresters, those were axe marks made by the Forestry Commission to indicate trees ready to be felled. The ground depressions, according to police and forestry workers, those were rabbit scrapings. Penniston's binary code was first revealed in 2010, 30 years after the event. Both Penniston and Burroughs have publicly stated they suffer from PTSD related to the incident. Memory researchers have long noted that traumatic events are not preserved in memory like a video recording. They can be shaped and reshaped over decades. What is documented is the Halt memo, the Halt tape, the original witness statements, and the fact that the British government has on multiple occasions declined to investigate further. What is not documented is what Penniston touched, or whether there was anything to touch at all. Rendlesham Forest is the most famous UFO case in British history. 45 years later, it remains formally unexplained, because the British government has never formally explained it. Whether the silence in itself is meaningful, or whether it simply reflects an institution that decided long ago there was no further information to add, well, this depends on the witness statements you want to trust. Thank you for listening. This has been Untold Evidence. Please subscribe, and any comments you may have, drop them down below and we'll all discuss them together. For now, we'll see you in the next one.